Now, concerning the warning of Jesus in Matthew 24, where he said, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many." Concerning that, and within that context, there are a number of other factors that he went on to speak about, and at the end of at least a portion of some of those, he adds, "And see to it that you're not deceived." So it would tell us that in addition to a series of intentional, planned ways to deceive you, there would be things going on at the time that would greatly contribute to the possibility of you being deceived. Again, the first of these things was deception coming from religious people. People who, quote, come in the name of Christ and saying that he is Christ, but will do that, will allege and will appear and will allege certain things solely for the purpose of deceiving you. Now, he gives us some context to that as well, where he says, "You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled." Well, the word troubled here is synonymous with being deceived. See you're not rocked back and forth. See that you're not thrown off your game, so to speak. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall arise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, pestilences, earthquakes in different places. These are the beginnings of sorrows. Then he goes on to say, they'll deliver you up to be afflicted. They'll even kill you. You'll be hated by all the nations for my name's sake. Many shall be offended and shall betray one another, shall hate one another, and many false prophets will arise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many, in other words, because this environment of moral instability and righteousness or uprightness, because it will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all the nations, and then the end will come. Now, very, very clear, abundantly clear, in fact, that the environment surrounding the return of the Lord is going to be one fraught with elements that are highly conducive to you being deceived. I'm trying to show you something here. I'm trying to show you that times will never go back to normal. A few years ago when we had COVID, the longing in everybody's heart was for this disease to run its course, that we even had terms like we'd achieve herd immunity. In other words, the human population, like a herd of animals, would achieve a point of immunity where the weakest have been killed off. The purpose of the pestilence would have been served, and we would be stronger for it. At that time I warned, do not kid yourself. These are not about herd immunities and just disease profiles sweeping through humanity to weed out weaker humanity as more or less an evolutionary phenomenon. No, that's not what God is doing. It's not what God allowed to happen. And in fact, he warned us that these things would happen. But more to the point, that we should grow closer in our trust of God. And when you grow closer in your trust to God, one of the features of that, one of the things that means is you begin to see things from his perspective. And his perspective is an eternal perspective, where humanity clothed upon with a destructible body is to understand, will be given the opportunity in an accelerated way to understand how to view things from God's perspective, as opposed to a perspective that sees as central the frailty of the human form, and in which perspective there's a desperation to preserve the human form at all cost, up to and including using your relationship to God solely for the purpose of survival. Now, here are some of the things that Jesus spoke to in that regard. He said, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, because these things must come to pass. Yes, there've always been wars, and I understand the skeptic's perspective. There've been diseases, there've been wars, there have been earthquakes, there have been pestilences of different kinds, and so on. So what makes this different? Why is this a concern about the end of the age? Jesus described the end of the age as a sequence of these very things happening in the fashion of birth pangs on a pregnant woman. What does that mean? It means there've always been earthquakes. It means there've always been famines. It means there've always been pestilences since mankind occupied the earth. But he's describing a cadence, a sequencing of these things to come upon the earth in a particular fashion as to be a sign. And that cadence, that frequency of occurrence, is in the form of birth pangs on a pregnant woman. That's why when I was speaking about this some time ago, I said to the audience, things are never going to go back to normal because we are in a different sequencing. We're in a different cadence. Something is about to be born. Now, the sequencing of these things and the cadence of that sequencing is not an empty set of happenings. They're purposeful in their intentionality, and indeed are released by God in the particular fashion in which they do come, so that we will be appropriately warned that mankind, humankind on the earth, would be appropriately warned, and as intelligent beings, having been warned, we would take heed. We would have an anticipation. We would be postured to anticipate, to look, to observe, to see. I have to say that the early indications are we're just trying to ride out the wave. And I think, inasmuch as it is largely, at this point, a distortion of information, I think what the people are planning to do, trying to do, is to form constituencies, like echo chambers, to reassure you that your view of things is going to prevail anyway. That's pretty clever. I'll admit that. But what is the likelihood that if you found a bubble, if you found a waterproof cabin in which you and a group of friends could huddle, you found a waterproof cabin on the Titanic, how much safety would that provide you? You're going to the bottom. Now, no water may come in to your cabin, but eventually you'll use up all the air. And that's when a different economy, a different environment, a different reality overwhelms the one you created to avoid having to deal with the way things actually are. People are creating all kinds of bubbles right now. The billionaires are creating the billionaire bubble, which includes billionaire bunkers, which may be islands in the Florida Straits, or in faraway places where you could import an entire support system and systems that support those systems. It's the height of folly for any group of people in the present world to think they have it within themselves to isolate themselves from things that God has designed to bring mankind to his senses. So I want to show you a little bit about these things Jesus said would happen, which are highly conducive to mankind being deceived. It's not just the corruption of information. It's not just propaganda. It's not just religious deception by religious personages. It's not just the alignment of religion with politics to try to create a bubble which, if you enter and if you believe in, will guarantee that you're going to be perfectly safe, perfectly fine. It's somewhat like saying, if the world suddenly stopped, wouldn't it be interesting to stand there and watch all those other people fall off because gravity isn't working anymore to keep people's feet on the ground? Where is the there that you're going to be standing? In what fashion are you not going to be like everybody else, being an equal sharer with everyone else in a violently disrupted environment? In places like San Francisco, they have learned that the enclaves of the wealthy are not safe places, not safe spaces, as they would say out there. Because right outside of those enclaves and encroaching upon those enclaves are the homeless population. So no, my analogy to the watertight or airtight compartment on the Titanic is therefore an apt analogy. Right now, we are already seeing the leading edge of the corruption of information. Information is so corrupt now that if you have any prejudices at all, and I'm not talking exclusively of racial prejudice, that's just one form of many that prejudice may take. If you have any form of prejudice, you're going to be deceived by something that is designed to appeal to you. I'm stunned by how many billionaires, when threatened by the current administration and its president, quickly paid tribute in real terms and in real time to the pressure to conform to a new administration's perspective. And people who used to be known as having principle now don't. Now what's revealed is that their principles were always the principles of their personal survival first and foremost. Now don't think these people aren't greatly afraid. Do not think that fear is absent from their motivation. Write it down, that the fear of the loss of the power of wealth is their most terrifying nightmare. No matter how nonchalantly they might act. In fact, one of the certainties is the more nonchalant they appear to be acting, the more calculated they are, and the more invested they are in their own survival. And if you go along with the things they're saying, in the ways that they are able to say these things, you are deceived. Not that you're going to be. If you go along with it, you are deceived. I was thinking about Jeff Bezos the other day and the way he backed away from using the newspaper that he bought, and how he has streamlined what he covers in that newspaper to guarantee his own version of things, to make him look like he remains kind of a man of the people. No, he's probably the most calculating of the lot. Elon just Elon is exuberant, calculating, yes, I'll grant that, but exuberant to the point where sometimes his slip is showing, so to speak, to use a term from another era. These people who seem to be acting in your best interest, they're not. You've come to be for so long, you've come to be the thing to be traded. You've come to be the commodity to be traded. Your information, that's the most valuable thing about you. How to market to you. That's the most valuable thing about your existence to these characters. And whatever they put out, whatever they tell you, whatever they lay out there for you to look at and to bite on, using it in fishing analogy, it's just that. You're the fish, and what they put out is the hook, the baited hook. And they intend to take advantage of you. Now, do they understand that not being crass about it still has some value? Of course they do. So for the present time, they're engaging in subtleties to lure you in and to hook you. But you mark my words. The time is coming when they won't even need to engage in subtleties. They'll be so confident of their control over you that they won't need to incur the cost, the expense, and the delay of being subtle, because you won't have an option. You won't have the ability to resist. These things Jesus warns us about are spoken of in a very fluid, prophetic saying. Prophetic language describes very fluidly these things Jesus is saying. What did Jesus say? You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom will rise against kingdom. That's what happens when there are wars and rumors of wars. And then there'll come what? Famines and pestilences, earthquakes in different places, and these are the beginnings of sorrows. Now come, let me show you that these are more than just references that are random. In the book of Revelation, these things are spoken of in terms of a cascading sequence of events. The book of Revelation, chapter 5, speaks of a scroll given to the one who sat upon the throne. And the one who sat upon the throne being the Lord Jesus Christ in representation, takes the scroll, and in chapter 6, he begins to open the scrolls. He begins to open the seals, the 7 seals, upon the scroll. And here's what happens. These are the prophecies regarding future events upon the earth, unfolding upon the earth, but their sequencing is directly controlled by the opening or breaking of the seals upon the scroll. So heaven controls the events that run through the earth. So I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. One of the 4 beasts saying, "Come and see." So John, the writer, the Apostle John, is now invited to look into what is released when a seal upon the scroll is broken, when a sealed item is now ready to be displayed. And verse 2, and I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on it had a bow and a crown, and it was given to him, and he went forth, he had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. the language here is so precise. It says, he came forth on a white horse. Now, this is a deliberate attempt to mimic the Messiah who is coming back. And we'll see at the end of the book of Revelation, in the sequences recorded to tell us about the return of the Lord, he comes forth. He comes forth on a white horse. So this is mimicry of the highest order. This is classically to deceive you. If you are a resident of the earth at that time, and I'm convinced that that time is upon us, then this rider on the white horse is a messianic type figure. Now, these are spirits. All of these 4 horsemen are spirits. They embody a certain presence, demonic presence. They embody a certain demonic presence that enters boldly upon the stage of mankind, humankind. So, this rider on the white horse is a Christ figure, a savior of sorts. The language is really interesting. He has a bow, as opposed to a sword. A sharp sword comes out of the mouth of the Lord Jesus Christ, who rides on a white horse. And on his robe and on his thigh, he has a clearly marked identity, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. In the ancient world, the bow was widely associated with hunting. Hunting. This one comes to seek prey. Yes, comes to seek prey. And the arrows of this bow are not mentioned because it's inherent in the very posture of this spirit at the head of a company of 5 spirits. Yes, I know there are 4 horsemen, but there are 5 spirits in total, because the 4th one, the rider on the pale horse, is called Death, but there's another who follows after him. Hell follows after him, to complete the entrapment of those who are captured with the deception, who are wounded with the deception of an arrow from a bow. He's a hunter. And a crown was given to him. Crown. It's interesting because this is not the word in the Greek here for this crown is not the word for a king's crown, which would be a diadem. It's called a Stephanos, or rather, it's not a king's crown that is a lasting crown from one generation to another. It's the term Stephano, and it represents the crown that a conqueror, such as someone who ran in the Olympic Games and personally succeeded, that's the crown that this person has. And it's consistent with the fact that he goes forth conquering and to conquer. You must not be deceived. You can't rely just on your information. You have to be taught about what these things mean. Otherwise, you will not see. You will not know, as people in the days of Noah. You will not know until the flood comes and takes you away. For some time, we've watched the rise of people who embody the Spirit. What was it, more than 2 years ago, the world watched as Vladimir Putin conquered or made an attempt to conquer the Ukraine, having first taken over a portion of the Ukraine in the southern part of the Ukraine. Emboldened by the lack of global response to him, he then launched an all-out attack to conquer the Ukraine. We see China building up its military to project its power in not just the East China Sea and to dominate nations like the Philippines and Australia and even Japan. We see that. Building islands in the middle of nowhere for refueling stops. Now, you could be naive and say, well, that's just China, flexing its newfound financial power. No, there's a spirit. Listen to me. There's a spirit in the world to conquer. We were all shocked recently to hear of this administration's announced purpose and to hear the press secretary announce the intentions of the president to make Canada the 51st state, to take back the Panama Canal from the Panamanians, to otherwise subjugate through the use of trade other nations. And we're thinking, where is all of this coming from? I'm here to tell you, this rider on the white horse has brought a spirit, and you've heard me, has brought. It's not an individual, these are just players, but the spirit that's in the world is a spirit of conquest. And conquest as a means of flexing your muscles. You're flexing your economic power to subjugate other nations. Essentially, the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance, NATO, has been torn up, and all forms of general agreements on tariffs and trades radically disbanded. Mutual defense pacts shredded. Even the institutions of a nation, which was all we had left to guarantee any kind of social norm, are being eviscerated by unelected people under the auspices of the elected ones. These are the beginnings of sorrows. That horseman is in the world. And men are prey to be hunted in the ancient fashion of bows and arrows. So, where did it come from? Was it just because Elon came on the scene? No. These are willing players. But it's the game that is being played is spiritual. A rider on a white horse. I'll continue on with this. if you'll stay with me for several of these broadcasts, because I've moved it up from saying the last days are going to have a lot of confused information. The last days will be characterized by the corruption of information. As a woman once said, alternative facts. When that was announced, we knew we were in the post-truth era. And that hasn't abated at all. And Kellyanne, although she was the one who announced it, it's been true on both sides. I mean, I watched in the recent elections, I watched as the candidate for the Democratic Party routinely skewed the facts, just like her opponents on the other side did, because they all do. Because without deception, people would actually make good decisions. Now everybody does. No one knows who to trust, and buyer's remorse is fully setting in. But, it's there are other deceivers who are not as well known, but whose actions and activities are just as poisonous to the retention of truth in a society based upon what is in fact true. But I'm telling you that it isn't just bad actors. I'm telling you, it's the times we live in. That's why Jesus told us that around the time of his coming, take heed that no one deceives you, because entire demonic structures designed to deceive will be deployed in the earth. And we just touched on one of them. One wearing a crown, riding on a white horse, intent upon conquering. The crown tells us about what's in his head. He's dedicated to the idea of conquering, of going forth to conquer and of conquering. Dedicated to that. The spirit that's manifesting now in certain humans of prominence about conquering other nations, conquering other people, about capturing people in systems of commerce and communication and all the rest of it, those are spirits. Evil spirits under the control of Satan himself. They'll laugh at it if you want. And see how easy it would be for you to extricate yourself from this level of deception. I promise you that you and your friends group that are talking to each other in echo chambers are like flies on the rump of a rhinoceros in terms of having an effect upon securing truth for your generation. I would make it more graphic if I could. I want you to be disabused of the notion that truth lies anywhere outside of the spirit of truth. And it doesn't lie in your friends group, and it doesn't matter how big that group is, and it doesn't matter the altruism of youth and your belief in truth emerging eventually just because. Just because you want it. I'm Sam Solon. I'm having a serious conversation with a generation. Your very lives depend on it. I'll talk to you some more about these things as we look at the other horsemen of the apocalypse and the motivation for believing deceiving things. When your life and your livelihood, when what you have, whether you can pay your rent, You can order your lattes. You can Uber to where you want to go. When those things are interrupted, things you've come to base your life upon, when they're interrupted, you will display capabilities that will stun you. Survival is a very powerful motivator. And no comfortable, no conviction that you've come to while you're surrounded by the comfort of present things has any potential at all of holding in that hour. Are you awake enough now? Did I wake you up enough? You have a personal vested interest in not being deceived. Take heed, Jesus said. Pay attention. Don't just cruise through. Even as I've said it, though, most of you will just cruise through. So what's going to happen will happen, despite anything that you've been warned about. So maybe this isn't for you. But that handful of you that know deeply within yourselves that something is wrong and you can't get your arms around it, and you need to be looking and listening, not to the sounds that come out of your echo chambers and from your friends group or whatever group you've constructed to buttress your fears. Maybe you'll venture out and start listening to people who actually can tell you what is true and prepare you for that time. My name is Sam Solin, and I'm trying to warn you. I have many more things to say. I hope you'll show up to hear them. Goodbye for now.
May mercy, grace, and peace be with you always. Thank you for watching.